Tom's got to become an instant expert on this. They're coming to us because they want to buy things Wall Street doesn't sell. But you cannot come in and fix something you've screwed up. The government does not want you to say this $500,000 property is worth $100,000 and hide from all that tax exposure. Hello, everyone. Dave and Tom Moore, the IRA experts, which putting a different hat on, talking about IRAs and 401k plans just for a few minutes, and it's December of 2025, so we're talking year end.
Yep. And I got to put my glasses on for this. There's just a little update for first off, the new contribution limits for 2026 are going up a little bit. So 2025 contribution limits for IRAs were $7,000. They're going up to $7,500 for 2026. Your catch-up going from $1,000 to $1,100. So if for contributions to be $7,500 for those that are 50 or older, can add the additional $1,100 for a total of $8,600 as a for your total contribution. The other thing I wanted to really quickly touch base on this time of year, really be checking your emails. A lot of clients that are in those years, the RMD years, are not so they're not really checking all their emails every day, and a lot of the information is coming out from the custodians is done so by email or some sort of electronic media, but. You're going to be getting your RMD amounts for anybody that's over 73 or you turn 73 this year. You've got RMDs that are going to be coming due, and that information will come to you from your custodian, typically either through statements or some other format, depending on the custodian. But usually you'll have a year-end statement that will have the RMD amount on it, and so that's something that you'll want to pass on to your tax people so they can prepare for that contribution for the RMD, the distribution to be made to you.
So the thing that on RMDs, required minimum distributions, the thing that's interesting to me always when we look at why people come to us, right? They're coming to us because they want to buy things Wall Street doesn't sell. If you're looking at RMD, it's very easy to calculate in the Wall Street world because you've got a quote price on everything they own at any given second. But when they're in our world, what's a piece of property worth? What's a note worth? What's what are these things that they've bought off that are outside of Wall Street's normal purview? What are those things worth? So when we look at annual valuations, do you care to make any comment on that?
The valuations. It's, for example, something like real estate. The custodians generally are not going to require that there's an appraisal done on the property. They'll want to have something that's going to give a good valuation, though, and a lot of times it'll just be a market analysis done by a broker. So if you've got a broker that you use to buy the property through, they can usually provide a market valuation to give a good strong number for that property for that particular year, because the custodian needs these numbers to have a total value for the IRA, which they're now going to base the RMD amount off of. They go off of the IRS charts that tell you how long you're going to live.
So you think about that. You think about valuations on stuff before people are into that RMD period. The annual valuation doesn't really matter much because what's in there is growing tax deferred, and you're going to pay tax on the distributions. So Tom and I normally work in we all typically work in a tax world. So 1031 or equity advantage, you're paying us a fee to take a sale and purchase and turn it into exchange deferring your gain, and we're talking about basis and gain in that space. When we talk about our IRA clients, it's just value in that has to be taken out at some point, and that's when you get the RMDs. And the valuations can be subjective. And one of the biggest objections I think Wall Street world has with our clients doing these off Wall Street investments, if it's real estate, for example, they consider real estate an illiquid investment, which The upside of that is the whoop-de-doos on valuation are probably much less extreme than they are on liquid things. But the adverse side of it is if you're in a situation where you've got a situation where you've got to take an RMD and you don't have enough cash to cover that RMD, what might be a solution there? Because Wall Street will say, well, you can't do this. What happens is you got to take an RMD. All the money's buried and you can't take this RMD. Now you're going to have a penalty on top of the tax on that thing.
Yeah, so you can take, it doesn't have to be a cash distribution for the RMD, or for any distribution, it doesn't have to be a cash distribution. You can take a distribution of an asset in kind. So whatever it is you're invested into, that can be part of the distribution, if not all of it. A lot of our clients will have IRA LLCs or excuse me, checkbook IRAs, and with those,
well, what is that? Just for the sake of everybody's.
So the checkbook IRA is where what is owned. We structure an LLC that's going to be wholly owned by the IRA account, and that LLC is now an entity that you're the manager of, and it's got the cash. It's got the cash from your IRA in it. You now, as the manager of that company, go out and buy the assets. So if you want to buy a rental property, it's a great way to own it. It's an easy way to buy it, and so you've got your self-directed custodial account that's structured, and we help with that if need be to set up the new account, get the money transferred from an existing IRA into that account. We then set up the LLC. We'll get it registered with the state, provide an operating agreement, get you an EIN, and then we direct the custodian to buy shares with that money that's been transferred. We direct them that they buy shares of that LLC. And at the end of that transaction, it usually takes somewhere around a month to do this, but at the end of that, you now have an LLC that is owned by your IRA account and is managed by you. And if you want to buy a piece of property, it's as simple as you going out and making an offer in the LLC's name, writing a check, or wire transferring the money yourself. The custodian does not have to be involved with the actual real estate purchase. What they're concerned with and what they see as an asset is the LLC itself. So it's a great way, especially if you're going to go out and buy multiple things. We've got people that will use these to go out and buy a house, they'll a rental house or bare land. They'll use it to buy gold and silver. They might buy notes or act as lenders. So they can have a multitude of different investments inside that IRA. And at the custodian level, they're only being charged for one asset, and that's the LLC itself. So it keeps the prices down on that level because you're not paying for a whole bunch of different assets.
I think that's really important. So when you hear the term checkbook IRA or IRA LLC, or in our case, a checkbook advantage IRA, that's what we're talking about. So we've created a limited liability company. The member is the trust company for benefit of your IRA. You're the manager of it. You're going to have a bank account in the LLC's name and EIN, and it's very, very nice to work with.
Yeah. And to get back to the valuation on that, so what the custodian and the IRS are really concerned with is the value of the IRA. And if we look at, in this case, if somebody has an IRA LLC, that's certainly something. It's an investment that's not a publicly traded company, so they may know how many shares you initially bought of that, but they have no idea what the value is at any given year because they don't know what that company owns.
Yes.
So when people have to provide an IRA LLC valuation each year for those types of things. And you're right, until you get to that 73 RMD age, you can provide the value. You say, okay, my company's worth X, you sign it and send it into them, and the custodian will take that and keep it with their paperwork. At the time in which you have RMD, it has to be verified what that value is. So we can verify values for people. We'll do so on a lot of these that we've set up for people. And so when people come to us and with their valuations for us to now sign to provide to the custodians, we'll need to see some sort of justification for each asset that's held within that LLC. If their LLC owns a piece of rental property, then we'll want to have some sort of valuation off of a market analysis or something similar to that. If they own things like precious metals, we'll want to have spot prices off of those as of the given date for the valuation. Same thing for notes. What's the face value? What's the remaining principal on those notes? So we'll take all of that information in and run through it, and then we can basically verify the value for them to turn into the custodians.
So valuations for RMD purposes is one thing. Valuations, let's say somebody wants to take out something in kind, or like I alluded to earlier, they didn't have enough cash, so now they've got to take an in-kind distribution. And if it's a piece of property, they could do that in two ways, right? They could do a tenancy in common distribution, basically, right? Take an interest in the property, a portion of the property's distribution, or they could do an assignment of membership interest, which then conveys everything, a portion of everything that's owned by the IRA LLC as a distribution. So there's no perfect way to do it. There's ups and downs to each of those. But if we're talking about taking an in-kind distribution, then the valuation has got to be sort of another level, typically.
Yeah, and the first year that is taken, if we have, for example, we've got this LLC and the person wants to take maybe they want to take shares of the LLC as their distribution. The first year in which we go into this, the RMD distribution or shares amount can be based off of the total value of the LLC. After that first distribution has been made, now the IRA owner has shares in the company as well. So the next year, let's say that their distribution for a given year took out 10% of the company. Next year, the valuations for the IRA is now going to be based on 90% of the company because that's what the IRA still owns.
I think the thing that's important for everyone to understand is that the government, we just wrapped up a segment talking about 1031s and valuations in the government, and how they look at different things. They're talking about the 5 years with Housing Assistance Tax Act, all that. So when we start looking at taking in-kind distributions, where for annual valuations you might not have a real high threshold, when you start taking the RMDs, it's more important. The numbers are more accurate. But when you're in a situation where you want to take something in kind, the government does not want you to say this $500,000 property is worth $100,000 and hide from all that tax exposure. So don't think that you can just say, well, hey, even though real estate valuations are subjective, you in that situation, if you're taking in-kind distribution, you really need to have a hard number that somebody, an appraisal or somebody a higher standard, so that you're not in a room having to defend something with the IRS at some point. That would not be a pretty situation. So just be aware of those things. But and we have a number of people that like take in-kind distributions at the end of the day.
Yeah, quite a few, and a lot of these people that have had IRA LLCs for any period of time. At some point, you're going to run into a situation, if you want to keep the asset that is inside that LLC, maybe it's a house that they want to retire in or something, but at some point in time, unless they're going to sell it, which would free up cash, unless they're going to do that, at some point in time, the cash is going to run down to a point where they won't have the cash to pay it, so they'll have to take in-kind distributions. Yeah, so it really depends on what is it that's owned inside it. If somebody's got a bunch of notes, those might be paying off regularly, and they're freeing up cash yearly to make these distributions, and it keeps it pretty simple. Not that the other is difficult, but as soon as you do have a distribution of shares, now you have a partnership situation with the entity itself. So you've got some K-1 reporting that needs to be done. Some people are afraid of that stuff. Others don't care. They'll let their tax people take care of it. But yeah, we see a lot of both ways.
So that end game of taking things in kind is something we have done regularly. And I think the thing that you've got to understand is if you take an in-kind distribution, so normally if you get that RMD point, you talk to your financial advisor, and let's say the RMD is $10,000 this year. Well, you know you're going to get the 10, and you might be giving up 2, 3, 4 of it to tax, right? But you've got the money there to pay the tax obligation. Be aware that if you take an in-kind distribution, you're triggering tax exposure without receiving the cash to pay the obligations. So just plan ahead on that. And that's really no different than doing a Roth conversion too. I mean, you're triggering some tax. So we've had people through the years that might have an apartment building and they want to convert it so it's entirely owned as Roth. Well, how do you pay the tax obligation? Well, maybe you do a cash out refi of the property to pay the tax obligation. If it's in the IRA, it's going to have to be non-recourse debt. If you've taken the property as a distribution, then you do the cash out refi and go get normal debt and pay the tax obligation on that thing. But once again, all these things are possible with a conversation. One other comment I just want to make is in regards to your setting these things up. Now, Tom spent a few minutes there going over what an IRA LLC or Checkbook IRA is, and you might think, well, gee, I don't need to pay these guys to do it. I can go register with the state and put the articles
I've
together.
Set up LLCs before.
Yeah, I've set
do
up
that,
LLCs.
yeah.
I'll just do it myself. That's a minefield for a couple reasons. I don't know if you want to comment on that. And then 2 is selection of the trust company and who you're going to work with. Tom made a comment a few minutes ago, and I'll explain the other piece. But when you start looking at trust companies, Tom made a comment about how they're making money, and it's very, very important for you to understand that in let's say in a self-directed world with a Checkbook IRA, you want to be working with a trust company that's going to charge you based upon the number of investments you have, not the value of the investments. Because through the years, we've had a number of people sitting there fighting with the trust company over valuations of things because the trust company wants it to be worth this much, way up high, when it's not, because they're going to make more money. Where Wall Street, you got to give it a value at any point.
Yeah, and the client wants the total opposite, especially when it comes to RMDs.
RMDs, yeah. So anyway, I interrupted you on that other component.
Yeah, so the first part of this, setting up these IRA LLCs, because we do get people quite a few times a year that contact us and say, well, I've got an LLC, I just need an operating agreement, or I've got this, I just need this portion of it. And usually it's going to end up resulting in a complete redo, because they might have an LLC that they had set up and they're listed as a member of it, or they certainly won't have an operating agreement that will satisfy the needs of the custodian, because custodians have to approve these things.
The operating agreement.
Yeah, the operating agreements. It's an IRA investment, and as such, it has to comply with all the rules and regulations for IRAs. So yeah, it's the actual registering of an LLC is very simple in most states, but to get these to pass muster with the custodians, you need a lot more. So the operating agreements are quite lengthy. They deal with a lot of things that change fairly regularly too. So when we set these things up, it's turnkey. When we're working with a custodian, they've seen our operating agreement many times over, and they know that it's going to comply with everything. It's a really quick process to get everything approved by them. And even with us involved, it's going to take generally somewhere around 4 weeks or so. If we really expedite things, we can get things done quicker, but it's it takes a little bit of time. The operating agreements that we have seen, we'll have people that have started these things. They've gotten attorneys involved that don't have any knowledge with respect to IRA investments too, and we've had attorneys that will contact us. And our experience is that even if you're in a large metropolitan area, you don't have a lot of attorneys that are familiar with these types of investments.
So don't, if you want to think you're going to get ahead and go forward by yourself, please don't. When it comes, you can go ahead and open the custodial account, but I once again, I'll caution you, understand what that custodian is, how they're going to charge you. And the other piece of deciding on what custodian you're going to use is you really have to be cognizant of what they're going to require with an IRA LLC or Checkbook IRA, because they may not allow you to be the manager of the entity. They may require your tax and legal people to sign something stating they're experts all things IRA, which they don't want to sign. They might say,
and if they're doing that, that's completely that's their policy, because
and it's a
the
trust
IRS
company
certainly allows for the client to be the manager. That's the way all of ours have been structured for many, many years, and it's, if you don't have it structured that way, you're really missing the whole point of these things.
But the idea is understand who you're working with and what their requirements are. When you're picking these trust companies, they're all different. They're going to charge you differently. They're going to have different rules. So our position is, a few minutes. If you want to set it up by yourself, that's fine. We'll let you know who we work with and how to take care of that stuff. But when you start working with the LLC, as Tom said, please don't get it started, because it just makes everything more complicated. And through the years that we've been doing this, there's been so many times where somebody's put an entity together, registered with the state, and we can't use it because it's been registered incorrectly, like Tom said. And when you're looking at a retirement account, really it breaks down. Anytime we're talking to a client, we want to know what they have, what the source of money is, what kind of money they want to use, and what they want to invest in. And then we're going to look forward and say, okay, what investments qualify, don't qualify. And really you're looking at two issues, the investment and who they're transacting between or for the benefit of. And that's going to dictate whether somebody can do something. It's not complicated when we get into it, but you cannot come in and fix something you've screwed up. If you, for example, this is how easy it can be to mess up. You go out, you say, oh, gee, I've been told that I can go buy a property with my IRA or 401k. So you go out and you talk to a broker and you tie up the property, and the contract's assignable. So you think, well, gee, I'm just going to tie it up personally and sign it over to the retirement account. You can't do that. That's a prohibited transaction. You took the property off the market, a disqualified party benefited, therefore it's a prohibited transaction. So in that space, even though like I said, it's two issues, make the call. Talk to us, talk to the advisors in your life, make sure that it's something that you're moving forward correctly and calculating, instead of saying, oh, I'm just going to do this and then reach out and fix it later, because you can't fix it. A prohibited transaction constitutes all funds in the account being distributed as of the first day in the year in which the indiscretion occurs. You don't want to do that. So it's very important that it's done correctly. You want to add anything to that, Tom?
I was just thinking with all of these comments, we do get calls all the time from people that want to do certain things, and they've heard about these self-directed and say, hey, this would be a great way for me to do X or Y. And so many times we have to tell people, well, you can't do that. And I was just talking to a guy yesterday that wanted to use his IRA to pay down a debt that he has on his personal residence, and can't do that. But there's all sorts of things that people would like to do, and we have to tell them, no, you can't do it. And so I was laughing at them and said, we don't always tell people what they want to hear, but we'll tell them what they can and cannot do, and that doesn't always align with what they want to do.
It's what they need to hear.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they need to hear it, and we'll tell them. We're not going to tell them they can do that. Yeah, oh, sure, you can do this. Let's just set this up for you. But it's complicated, and we're here to help. So
we had a lot of fun with that, and actually, I think that, Tom and I, through the years with the exchanging, I think the thing that keeps us in it is the creativity and just the satisfaction of sitting across the table from somebody going through their scenario and they feel trapped, and when you give them a tool to get someplace, that's just priceless. And with the retirement stuff, I think that what we're talking about is not new. These self-directed accounts have always been possible. it's just information that's just not out there. It's not readily available, and it's not readily available in the tax and legal world. And so, the best thing you can do if you got questions, you've got some qualified money you'd like to use in some different things, best thing you do is give us a call. Talk to us. Take a few minutes. We'll tell you whether you can or can't do it. And if you can do it, we'll start reviewing your scenario and what the best course forward is for you. So.
Okay.
Well, I think we're going to wrap it up at the moment. So always fun, bro.
Yeah. If you have other questions about year-end stuff, let us know.
Thank you very much for joining us, Dave and Tom Moore, the IRA Bros, and looking forward to speaking with you soon. Happy holidays. Bye-bye.